Ronnie Mac Reynolds sat at his desk, staring blankly at his laptop screen. It was another long day at the auto shop he managed, his mind somewhere else, as it often was. His wife, Shawnee Reynolds, or Tay for short, had been in a coma for 12 years, and not a day went by that he didn't think about her. Then his phone rang. He glanced at the caller ID. Rayon Assisted Living facility. His heart stopped. He had received calls from the hospital before, routine updates, minor health concerns, billing notices, but something felt different this time. Slowly, he picked up. "Mr. Reynolds, this is Dr. Bennett. Are you in a place where you can talk?" Ronnie's stomach clenched. "What happened? Is Tay?" He couldn't even say the word. There was a pause on the other end, a long, heavy pause. Then the doctor spoke again, her voice shaky. "Mr. Reynolds, we have news. Your wife had a baby." Ronnie's world froze. He blinked, then blinked again. The words didn't make sense. Tay, his wife, the woman who'd been unconscious for over a decade, had a baby? It had to be a mistake. "What? What did you just say?" His voice barely came out. Dr. Bennett sounded unsteady. "I know this is shocking, but we just delivered a full-term, healthy baby boy. Tay gave birth." His fingers tightened around the phone. He could hear the chaos in the background. Hospital staff murmuring, the beeping of monitors, the faint sound of someone crying. The doctors were crying. Ronnie stood up so fast his chair nearly tipped over. How is that possible? Who's the father? The question alone sent a wave of nausea through him. Another pause. "Mr. Reynolds, we don't know yet, but we're conducting an investigation." Ronnie's knees felt weak. He braced himself against the desk. His wife was in a coma. His wife had a baby. And now the hospital was investigating. Dr. Bennett cleared her throat, struggling to stay composed. "Mr. Reynolds, we need you to come to the hospital immediately." Ronnie barely remembered hanging up, barely remembered grabbing his keys. The only thing running through his mind was the impossible horror of what had just happened. As he sped through traffic toward the hospital, his hands shook on the wheel. Tay had been in a coma for 12 years. There was no way she could have consented, which meant only one thing. Someone had done this to her. This is the story of a man who thought his wife was safe, until one shocking phone call revealed a nightmare. Stay with us as we unravel the chilling truth behind what happened inside that facility. Subscribe for more true crime stories that will leave you speechless. Before the accident, before the coma, before his world collapsed, Ronnie was a man who worked with his hands. Grease-stained fingers, the scent of motor oil clinging to his clothes. He built things, fixed things, understood machines better than he did people. He met Shanti Green when he was just 17. She was everything he wasn't, soft-spoken, book-smart, a dreamer. She had her head in the clouds, always talking about helping kids, making a difference, building a future. Ronnie didn't have a future planned. He was a man who lived in the moment. But somehow, she made him think beyond tomorrow. They were inseparable. Tay went to college and became a high school English teacher, adored by her students. Ronnie stayed behind, working in an auto shop, saving up to open his own garage one day. They got married at 23 years old. No big wedding, just close friends, family, and a whole lot of love. For 12 years, their marriage was solid, not perfect, but real. Ronnie worked long hours at the shop, grinding, saving money, determined to build a better life for them. Tay poured her heart into teaching, staying late to help struggling students, working summer programs to bring in extra money. They weren't rich, but they were happy. They had dreams. Until one night changed everything. It was supposed to be a simple date night, something they hadn't done in a while. Ronnie had finally saved up enough to buy his dream truck, a black 2010 Ford F-150. That night, they had gone out to celebrate. Dinner at their favorite steakhouse. A few drinks. Laughter. Holding hands across the table like teenagers in love. Then the drive home. It was raining, not a storm, just that light drizzle that makes roads slick. The kind that makes headlights glow a little too bright on wet pavement. Ronnie had been driving a little too fast. Not reckless, but just enough to make a mistake. He never saw the curve coming. 1 second, everything was normal. The next, the tires skidded. The back end fishtailed. Tay screamed his name. Ronnie yanked the wheel, overcorrected. The truck spun. Everything blurred. A flash of headlights, the crunch of metal, weightlessness. A crash. Then silence. When Ronnie opened his eyes, he was hanging upside down. The seat belt dug into his chest. Blood in his mouth. Smoke curling from the hood. He turned his head. Tay wasn't moving. Tay never woke up. Ronnie walked away with minor injuries. A concussion. A few broken ribs. Some deep gashes. But Tay never even opened her eyes. The doctors said there was no brain activity. She wasn't dead, but she wasn't alive. Persistent vegetative state. They called it. Ronnie sat beside her hospital bed for days, waiting, talking to her, begging her to wake up. But she never did. Ronnie stopped going to work. He sat at the hospital every day, staring at the love of his life, trapped in a body that didn't respond. He replayed that night over and over in his head. If I had driven slower, if I had reacted a second earlier, if I had taken another route home. His mind was a prison, and guilt was his jailer. People told him it wasn't his fault. That accident happened, but he didn't believe them. Tay was his responsibility. And now, because of him, she was trapped between life and death. After 6 months, they moved Tay to Rayon Assisted Living facility, a long-term care center just outside Atlanta, the best in the state. Ronnie sold their house, moved into a small apartment, and made one promise to himself. He would never abandon her. Every Sunday, without fail, he visited. He brought flowers, talked to her, played her favorite songs on a little speaker. The nurses were kind, but they told him the same thing every time. She's not coming back, Mr. Reynolds. He didn't listen. She was still breathing. Her heart still beat. He believed she could wake up. But as months turned to years, hope started to fade. Ronnie never moved on. He never dated anyone. Stopped thinking about the future. Tay was his future. People told him to let go. Friends, family. Even Tay's mother said, Ronnie, she wouldn't want this for you. But he didn't care. He had one job, to love her until the end. Tay Reynolds had been in a coma for 12 years. Her life, if you could call it that, was confined to a single room at Rayon Assisted Living, a quiet facility tucked away on the outskirts of Georgia. Unlike some of the underfunded and overcrowded care centers, Rayon had state-of-the-art equipment, highly trained staff, and private rooms for each patient. It was expensive, but Ronnie didn't care. He wanted the best for her. The doctors called Tay a miracle patient. Her body was strong. Her heartbeat steady. Her organs functioned perfectly. But her mind was gone. She may never wake up. They told Ronnie over and over, we don't see any improvement. You should start thinking about other options. But Ronnie refused to give up. For 12 years, Ronnie never missed a Sunday. Rain or shine, he was there. He brought fresh flowers every time, arranging them neatly on the bedside table. He brought a small speaker and played her favorite songs, soft R&B classics she used to hum while cooking dinner. He sat beside her, held her hand, and talked. Hey, baby, I saw this couple at the diner today. Reminded me of us. Remember that road trip to Florida? We got lost for hours, but you just laughed. I know you're in there somewhere. Tay, I just know it. At first, he thought he saw small movements, a twitch in her fingers, a flutter behind her eyelids. But every time he pointed it out, the doctors shook their heads. It's just muscle reflex, not real movement. So Ronnie kept talking, because if he stopped, if he let the silence settle in that room, he would have to accept the truth. And he wasn't ready for that. Ronnie had no reason to worry. Rayon Assisted Living had an excellent reputation. The nurses adored Tay. They had watched over her for years, treated her like family. Ronnie trusted them. Why wouldn't he? Her room was always immaculate. Her sheets were freshly changed. Her hair was combed. Every time he visited, he saw smiling staff, warm faces, gentle hands adjusting her fore, making sure she was comfortable. There were no bruises, no marks on her body, no indication that anything was wrong. If there had been, Ronnie would have noticed. Or at least, that's what he told himself. Tay had become a part of the facility. the longest-standing patient. Some nurses came and went, but Tay remained. New staff members were briefed about her case. She's been here for over a decade. Her husband visits every Sunday. She's one of the lucky ones. Most people in her condition don't get visitors. She wasn't just another patient. She was a story, a reminder of how life could change in an instant. For the staff, she was a fixture of the place. For doctors, she was a medical mystery. And for Ronnie, she was still his wife, the love of his life, the woman he was waiting for. Until the call that changed everything. It happened on a Wednesday. Ronnie was at work when his phone buzzed in his pocket. He almost ignored it. He never got calls from the facility midweek, only when something was wrong. Mr. Reynolds? Yes. This is Dr. Bennett from Rayon Assisted Living. The hesitation in her voice made his stomach drop. I don't know how to say this. Ronnie's chest tightened. Is it Tay? Is she? He couldn't finish the sentence. She's alive, Mr. Reynolds. She's stable. But she had a baby. Ronnie couldn't move. Tay gave birth. Yes. Last night. A baby boy. Ronnie's mind short-circuited. His wife, his coma wife, had a baby. The staff was in tears. Doctors, nurses, even the administrators. Ronnie could hear in the background a nurse sobbing, someone murmuring prayers. We had no idea, Mr. Reynolds. There were no signs she was pregnant. For months, and none of us knew. His vision blurred. None of them knew. Who did this? Ronnie's voice wasn't his own. A cold rage rose inside him. The doctor stammered. We are launching a full investigation. This should never have happened. Ronnie gripped the phone so tightly he almost broke it. Tay was vulnerable. She couldn't speak, couldn't fight back, and someone had violated her. He dropped everything, left the shop without a word, drove recklessly through the streets of Atlanta, blood pounding in his ears. By the time he arrived at Rayon, the entire facility was in chaos. Staff were huddled in corners, whispering. Police were already on site. He stormed through the halls, past the waiting room, past the nurse's station, straight to Tay's room. And when he stepped inside, he saw her, still unconscious, still in her bed. And beside her, a tiny newborn baby, wrapped in a blanket. His son, a child that wasn't his. And in that moment, Ronnie Reynolds knew his life would never be the same again. The doctor standing at the foot of Tay's bed couldn't even look him in the eye. Some of the nurses had tears streaming down their faces, their hands clutched over their mouths as if trying to hold back sobs. The air felt heavy. Ronnie's hands clenched into fists. What the hell happened? He asked. The doctor took a slow breath, trying to steady himself. Mr. Reynolds, we don't know. Ronnie's jaw locked. You don't know? The doctor swallowed hard before speaking again. We did every test. The pregnancy was full term. That means this happened months ago. Ronnie's stomach dropped. You're telling me someone did this to her while she was lying in that bed? A nurse sobbed softly in the background. We have surveillance, the doctor continued, his voice tight. But there were so many staff members coming in and out. Different shifts. We're going through every second of footage. Ronnie took a step back, breathing heavily. This was supposed to be a safe place. Tay was supposed to be protected. Instead, someone had taken advantage of her vulnerability. Someone had done the unthinkable. And for 9 months, no one had noticed. Ronnie's gaze dropped to the baby. He was tiny, fragile, his little fingers curled into a fist, his chest rising and falling with soft, steady breaths. His son's half-brother, born under horrifying circumstances. Ronnie felt rage coil inside him, a heat so intense he thought he might explode. But at the same time, he couldn't ignore the weight of innocence in that tiny face. This child didn't ask for this, didn't deserve this. He was a victim too. The entire facility had been turned upside down. Police officers were arriving. Administrators were scrambling. Everyone was being questioned. The lead nurse, an older woman with gray streaks in her hair, looked absolutely devastated. We had no idea. We all loved Tay. We would never. Ronnie's voice was cold. "And yet, here we are," he said. The nurse looked like she was about to collapse. The police chief pulled Ronnie aside. "Mr. Reynolds, I promise you, we will get to the bottom of this." Ronnie nodded stiffly, his entire body tense. But he didn't want promises. He wanted justice. As officers began their initial sweep of the facility, Ronnie took one last look at Tay. Her beautiful face was still peaceful. She had no idea what had happened. No idea what her body had been through. No idea that somewhere inside this very hospital, her attacker was still walking free. Within an hour, crime scene techs were inside the facility. Swabs, samples, hair follicles. Every male staff member, doctors, nurses, janitors, security, was ordered to submit DNA immediately. They didn't ask. They demanded. And no one argued. But Ronnie, standing by Tay's bed, his jaw clenched, wasn't willing to wait. Who did this? His voice was a quiet storm. The hospital director, an older woman who looked like she hadn't slept in years, swallowed hard. "Mr. Reynolds, I swear to you we don't know." Her hands were shaking. "But we'll find out. The entire hospital staff are being questioned." Interrogation started immediately. Nurses and doctors were called into a separate room, questioned one by one. Some were angry. Some were shaking. Some were in tears. But one thing was clear. Everyone was in shock. This wasn't just a hospital. They had worked side by side for years. They trusted each other. And now, one of them had betrayed that trust in the worst possible way. Who was in her room the most? Detective Latimore asked. Who had night shifts? Who had unrestricted access? The head nurse, an older woman with tired eyes, looked at her roster of employees. Her hands tightened around the clipboard. Then her face changed. A shadow of realization. A hesitation. The detective noticed immediately. "What is it?" She licked her lips, then slowly whispered a name. And just like that, the room went ice cold. Detective Latimore sat alone in his office. The ticking clock on the wall was the only sound cutting through the silence. The manila folder in front of him felt heavier than it should. Inside was the truth, and he already knew, deep in his gut, that it was going to be bad. His fingers hovered over the folder's edge. Then, with a slow breath, he flipped it open. One name, Jerome J. Holloway. Jay wasn't just a random employee at Rayon Assisted Living. He was one of their best. A trusted nurse. A respected coworker. A man who had spent 6 years caring for coma patients, including Tay Reynolds. He had violated a helpless woman. A woman who had no voice. No way to fight back. No way to say no. And worst of all, he thought no one would ever find out. Latimore grabbed his phone, his voice ice cold as he spoke into the receiver. "Get a unit to Holloway's apartment. Now!" When officers stormed into Jay Holloway's apartment, he didn't run, didn't even look surprised. He was sitting on his couch, beer in hand, TV on, completely at ease, as if he had been expecting them. The officers moved fast. "Jerome Holloway, you're under arrest." One of them barked, yanking him to his feet. Jay sighed, didn't fight, didn't argue. He simply let them cuff him. They dragged him outside, neighbors peeking through their blinds, whispering. And still, Jay didn't say a word. Not until he was sitting inside the interrogation room, face to face with Detective Latimore. Jay sat across from him, his hands cuffed to the metal table. He didn't ask for a lawyer, didn't demand his rights. He just leaned back in his chair, stretching like this was a casual conversation. And then he smiled. "I loved her," he said, voice disturbingly casual. Latimore's face darkened. "You what?" Jay tilted his head, his tone almost dreamy. She was beautiful, even asleep. Latimore felt a chill crawl up his spine. This wasn't just a predator. This was a man who had convinced himself he did nothing wrong. Jay continued, his voice calm. "I took care of her. No one else came at night. It was just me and her." Latimore clenched his fists under the table. Jay's smile widened. She never talked back, never argued. She was perfect. The room went silent. Then Latimore slammed his fist against Jay's cheek. "You animal," he said. "You violated a helpless woman." She couldn't fight back. You stole her life, and you think it's love. Jay shrugged. His expression never changed. You wouldn't understand. When news broke about Jay's arrest, the entire country erupted. Hospitals weren't supposed to be like this. These places were meant to heal people, to protect them. But now the truth was out, and it was bigger than just Rayon Assisted Living. Because this wasn't the first time. Another state, another coma patient, another woman, another hospital. The pattern was undeniable. Predators like Jay knew how to hide. They blended in, earned trust, and then they struck. It took the jury less than an hour to decide. Guilty, on all counts. The judge's voice was steady, firm, unshaken. Jerome Holloway, you've been found guilty of multiple charges, including aggravated assault, misconduct by a healthcare professional, abuse of vulnerable patient, and sexual assault. The weight of those words filled the courtroom like a crushing force. The people in the gallery shifted, tension thick in the air. The sentence was coming. The judge's gaze locked onto Jay, eyes sharp with disgust. You were given a position of trust, one of the highest responsibilities a person can have. You used that trust to commit an act so vile, so irredeemable, that there are no words strong enough to describe its cruelty. Jay sat stone-faced, no reaction, no flicker of guilt, no acknowledgement of the lives he destroyed. For your crimes, this court sentences you to 122 years in prison, without the possibility of parole. A wave of emotion rippled through the room. Some gasped, some cheered, some sobbed into their hands. But Ronnie Reynolds didn't move. He just stared straight ahead. Because no matter how many years they gave Jerome Holloway, Tay was still in that hospital bed, still trapped in a coma. And no sentence, no punishment, no amount of time could undo what he did to her. At the hospital, Ronnie sat in the chair beside Tay's bed, staring at the tiny bundle in his arms. A baby boy, her baby, his baby, and yet not his. His hands trembled as he touched the baby's tiny fingers, the infant softly curling against his chest. A part of Ronnie wanted to pull him closer. Another part wanted to run, because every time he looked at him, he saw Tay's suffering. He saw the violation. He saw the man who took everything from her. The baby was innocent. But how could he separate him from the horror that created him? He closed his eyes, exhaling sharply. What was he supposed to do? Days passed. Ronnie went through the motions. He signed the papers at the hospital. He made the arrangements for Tay's continued care. But he still hadn't decided what to do with Elijah. He could walk away. He could pretend this never happened. But Tay's face haunted him. The way she used to laugh. The way she loved. Fiercely. She would never abandon this child. So neither could he. He picked up the birth certificate. The name space was empty. Ronnie grabbed a pen and wrote, Elijah Reynolds. Named after Tay's late father. A man who believed that love wasn't about where you came from. It was about what you chose to become. A week later, Ronnie moved Tay to a private care home. Somewhere peaceful. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere away from everything that happened. He still visited her. Still sat beside her bed. Still held her hand. But he stopped waiting for a miracle. He stopped believing she would wake up. Because she was already gone. Some choices are impossible. Some wounds never heal. But in the end, love is the only thing that can save us. Would you have made the same decision? Let us know in the comments. Subscribe for more true crime stories. This is Ruthless Realities. Until next time.